Okay, Mr. Mayor, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Approval of our agenda. Is there any add-ons to your agenda here tonight? Seeing none. The recommendation is that the agenda be approved as presented. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Pringle. Any discussion on the motion before us? I guess a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Declaration of peculiar interest, you can declare anytime you see fit during the meeting. Minutes of the previous minutes. The recommendation is that the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting held on November 16th, 2021 be adopted. Someone to move put on floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Barfoot. Any discussion on the motion before us? Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to note an error on the original agenda that was published to the website. The correct date of the previous meeting is November 16th. So the motion has been amended to reflect the appropriate date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If there's no discussion, I'll show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. We're down to new business. It is Z 1421 and B 1421 for Johnson. This meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider the application for consent for John and Pat Johnson under Section 43 of the Planning Act regarding property legally described as Concession 2 SCD west part of Lot 1. Madam Secretary, please go ahead with your review. Jen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there has been no request for deferral or withdrawal of the application. Notice of this consent in accordance with Ontario Regulation 197/96 made under the Planning Act was given on December 14th, 2021 by ordinary mail to all property owners within 120 meters of the property which is subject to the application and to all the required agencies. Notice was also posted on the subject lands and the township's website. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, you must make a written request to the Secretary-Treasurer of the Committee. Only a person or public body that requests a notice of decision of the Committee in respect to this proposed consent may submit an appeal.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Planner, please give your overview of the application. Jen?
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here.
We can see it.
Okay, thank you. So this is an application for John Johnson for a severance. The application proposes to create a 1.82 hectare privately serviced lot with 140 meters of frontage and a shared access. The 1.82 hectares is approximately 4.49 acres. The Committee of Adjustment did approve application B0621 on November 16th of 2021. The owner has since reconsidered the configuration of the lot and the resulting access and submitted a second application with dimensions to include an area of land that was originally intended to be the access easement. So the site plan within the planning report shows the configuration of the new lot. And if you look on the screen here, the original application B06 was approved to create the property outlined in red on the left side of the screen, a 1.8 hectare parcel with 108 meters of frontage. And the intention was to have an easement over the retained property for access. The application that's before the committee today is for a 1.82 hectare lot with 140 meters of frontage. And it's actually going to now include the area that originally was intended to be an easement. Mr. Johnston would like to be able to use that as his own private property in the future. So you can see on this image here, it's zoomed in a lot more. The intent is now to have the property line pretty much bisect the existing driveway for a portion so that both properties have access onto the highway, and it will be a shared access. As part of the MTO approval, the MTO is requiring that there be an access agreement registered on title to the lands, and the MTO is only granting one entrance for this property. So the planning report does provide a review of the policies that affect this proposal. And as noted, the application does satisfy the county lot creation policies. The proposed lot is outside of any identified natural heritage features. The comments we received from the Conservation Authority note that within the vicinity of that property, bobolink and eastern meadowlark have been noted. So if those two species are encountered prior to development of that severed parcel, the owner is to contact the MECP for further direction. With the application, the owner did submit a karst assessment, and the documentation provided shows that there are no or minimal karst features on the subject lands, and no concerns are noted. So that assessment was received by the Conservation Authority as well as the county. So as the property fronts a provincial highway, the Ministry of Transportation does provide comment on the application. And in support of this application, the applicant submitted documentation from the Ministry of Transportation that does confirm a mutual use access is permitted off of the highway to access these properties. So because the property is will have a shared access, it won't meet the provisions of the zoning bylaw. So a zoning amendment is going to be, a public meeting will be presented to council on January 19th, tomorrow evening. And the application proposes to recognize the deficient frontage for the retained lot. So the larger retained property, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, will now have 168 meters of frontage. Our bylaw requires 200 meters as a minimum frontage for a rural lot, and the proposed lot is going to have 140 meters. So the comments that we've received to date are from the Ministry of Transportation. In their in their January 13th comments, the MTO reiterated their November 3rd comments. They are supportive of the consent application. They will permit one mutual entrance permit. As part of the entrance permit application, MTO will require information showing a mutual entrance, and that needs to be registered on title to the lands. The Grace Harbor Conservation Authority provided comments on August 9th, August 17th, and January 13th, and they have no objection to the approval of the consent application. And in their most recent comments, they note that no additional comments were necessary. Their original letter is still sufficient, with the exception that they no longer need to have the karst information included as a condition of consent because a karst assessment was submitted. Grey County Planning and Development Department, in their correspondence dated January 5th, they note that county staff have reviewed consent application B1421. Previous comments were relayed through application B621 as well as Z1421. These comments remain relevant to the subject application and will not be reiterated. Staff defer comments on the proposed shared access easement to the MTO and Georgian Bluffs, but acknowledge that this mode of access is not generally encouraged on county roads. Staff have no further concerns with the subject application. The Saugeen Ojibwe Nation provided comments dated December 14th, 2021. They noted, at this point, Saugeen Ojibwe Nation's Environment Office does not have the resources to engage in consultation on this project. We have no further comments on this project. If at any point anything of archaeological interest is revealed on site, please contact the SON Environmental Office immediately. The Risk Management Office provided comments dated December 14th, noting the property is not located within a vulnerable source protection area where significant threat policies apply. Therefore, we have no further comment on this application under the Clean Water Act. We circulated to the notice to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, and we did receive written comments in support of the application from a Mr. Rick Bumstead. And Mr. Bumstead noted, "I have no problem with this." So in conclusion, the recommendation is to approve the severance application. It's been demonstrated that the proposed severance is consistent with Provincial Policy Statement 2020, the County Official Plan, and the Township of Georgian Bluffs Zoning Bylaw 2020-020. And it's recommended the application be approved with the conditions in the staff report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here.
Thank you, Jen. One member of the public registered with the clerk to provide comments and support in opposition to the applicant. I will now call on John Johnson to make comments on this application. Please state your name, first name and last name for the record prior to beginning. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While Mr. Johnson did register to participate this evening, he has not joined us, so he's not present.
Okay, thank you. Does the committee have any questions on the applicant? Which one? Councilor Barfoot, go ahead.
More out of curiosity than anything. First of all, I'm in favor of this, but when did MTO start this with, it doesn't matter how you cut it. You still got two residences that are exiting or entering onto the highway. They say you're only allowed one. Well, yeah, you've got one, but actually it's two. So when did all this start? And can other property owners have that parallel road to the highway, such as down Highway 6, where it happens all the time?
Jen, can you answer that?
So the MTO updated their policies, I want to say in 2014, 2015, I believe. But it was definitely within the last 10 years. The reason why they control the accesses is for safety reasons. We know that the purpose of the provincial highway is for the efficient movement of goods and people. So the MTO does have a policy where they restrict the number of entrances within a kilometer onto a provincial highway. So that's the reason why the shared access is permitted. The more entrances that you have onto a provincial highway, it impedes the flow of traffic. The speed limit along there is 80 kilometers an hour. So it increases the opportunity for people to be injured or harmed coming in and out of that property.
It's just that this is the first one that I remember, such as this.
Thank you, Councilor Barfoot. Councilor Pringle, please go ahead.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, no, I was kind of just a bit on what Councilor Barfoot had mentioned there. Is this something that we're going to see more of happening now with the opportunity to do this? Like neither frontage on this piece of property that we're going to sever off here meet the criteria of actual size for frontage lots. So is this going to be, are we going to see more people coming forward now with single-use roadway going onto the highway that's gonna wanna sublet another severance off their property?
Jen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the MTO policies don't support support this sort of this development. Mr. Johnson did appeal to the MTO to have his application reviewed. So prior to coming to the township with the severance application, he received an exemption from the MTO to allow him to have a shared to have the shared access to be able to apply for the severance application.
Does that answer your question, Grant?
Actually, it does, and it doesn't make me feel any better. Thanks.
Thank you, Grant. Deputy Mayor, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It just reminds me though of, it's been within the last 3 to 4 years where a property on the east end or southeast end of Shallow Lake was asking for this very same thing, to do a secondary suite on the property, and weren't even asking for a severance. And they weren't allowed to do it. MTO shut that one down. What makes the difference?
Jen, can you speak for MTO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The difference is that Mr. Johnstone applied to the MTO and received an exemption. And the application that Member Carlton is referring to, the property owner did not apply for an exemption or for special consideration.
Sue, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Actually,
Jen, go ahead.
I just wanted to remind the committee, I did mention it in the planning report. The previous consent application for B06, it was approved. So there has been a decision issued on the previous consent. There's no way to cancel that other than to let it lapse. So if the committee were to approve this application, the previous consent application would not be stamped. There's no the township secretary treasurer is the one who stamps the schedule to approve the consent, so it can be registered. So there's no way that application B06 21 will be stamped. It will be left to lapse, just so that the committee is aware that there'll be 2 permissions granted on this property for lot creation, but one of them is technically not going to ever be approved.
Thank you, Jen. Is there any other questions from the members? Seeing none, I will now call for a vote on the motion on this decision. The recommendation is, it has been demonstrated that the proposed application is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020, the county official plan, and the township of George Bluffs zoning bylaw 2020. It is recommended that the severance application B1421 for John and Pat Johnson be approved. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councilor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Madam Clerk, do I see your hand?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just want to note that Councillor Barfoot is not in attendance. Councillor Barfoot, are you with us? Mr. Mayor, if I may, while we do have quorum, I would suggest we postpone or hold the vote just to give Councillor Barfoot a few minutes to return. Oh, perfect. Thank you. So, Mr. Mayor, if I may, now that Councillor Barfoot has returned, I would like you to please reread that motion and retable it.
Thank you. The recommendation is, it has been demonstrated, excuse me. It has been demonstrated that the proposed applicant is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020, the county official plan, and the Township of Georgian Bluff zoning bylaw 2020. It is recommended that severance application B1421 for John and Pat Johnson be approved. And it was moved by Sue and second by Grant. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion has been carried. So I need a motion, that's all we have. We have no unfinished business here tonight. Our next meeting will be February 15th, 2022. If there's no other discussions, I will call for adjournment of this meeting. Moved by Carol, second by Grant. If there's no discussion, all in favor of adjournment, please. We're now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good evening.